Tony burst into Rick's office as usual, without knocking and without an invitation. Rick was on the phone, so he held a finger up to stop her from interrupting him. She ignored him, walked around his desk, and plopped into his lap. Then, she put her arms around him and kissed him on the cheek. Rick, Tony is my personal assistant, and I have to tell you, she is absolutely one of a kind. I appreciate her a lot and certainly enjoy the energy she brings into the office. I pulled away from the phone call and kissed her on the cheek. 2. Tony was 8.5 months pregnant, and her belly showed it. Any man would be proud to be the father, but it wasn't me. Don't get me wrong. I've shared many memories with Tony, but I wasn't the one responsible for her pregnancy. There are several reasons why. The first reason is Gino Antonelli, Tony's husband. Gino is 6 feet tall, weighs about 240 pounds, and let's just say he has connections. Gino is also the production manager at my advertising firm and my best friend. Believe me, no one messes with Tony. The second reason is that Tony is my adopted sister. When I was 5 years old, her family adopted me and took me in. I won't go into the details of why I was adopted, but those first 5 years weren't easy, and it took a while to adjust to the Castile family. I felt very insecure at first and often sought comfort from Tony. We were the same age, had similar temperaments, and became inseparable. That bond remains strong to this day. So, as you can see, I've spent a lot of time with her, but she has always been family to me. Anyway, back to the story. My name is Richard Castile, though most people call me Rick or Castile. I'm the owner of Castile Advertising Agency. As mentioned, Tony is my personal assistant, and Gino is the production manager. We have about 25 employees, each with different roles. The agency has built a solid reputation, running many successful advertising campaigns, both in the past and currently. Financially, we're doing well, and my staff and I enjoy the rewards of that success. After ending my call, I turned to Tony and kissed her on the cheek. I asked, "What's up, babe?" She smiled and replied, "Oh, Ricky, the baby is very active today. I can feel him moving around a lot. He moves so much it's hard to find a comfortable way to stand or sit. I'm really glad it's almost over. I can't wait for baby Ricky to join us, though the thought of labor makes me a little nervous. But hey, millions of women have done it before, so I'm sure I can too." I placed my hand on her belly and felt the baby's movements. It was exciting to feel that life growing inside her. They were definitely expecting a boy. I had seen the ultrasound myself. With that confirmation, there was no doubt. They had even decided to name him Ricky, as a way to honor me. Tony continued, "I just came by to remind you that I scheduled an appointment for a temporary employee to fill in for me while I'm on maternity leave. Make sure you're free at 4 p.m. and give us at least half an hour." "Okay." I replied, "Tony, I don't know how you'll find someone good enough to replace you." She laughed. "Don't even think for a second that someone can replace me, Buster. Remember the word, temp? There will be no replacement. Her name is Kate Becker, and she seems like a very capable woman. So don't worry, the job will get done." With those words, Tony got up from my lap and waddled gracefully out of the office. There's something about pregnant women. Most don't see themselves that way, but I think they're beautiful. Maybe it's the glow on their faces. Either way, Tony was glowing. At 4 p.m., Tony knocked on my door. Wow! When I invited her in, she walked in with a young woman. Tony introduced her. "Rick Castile, this is Kate Becker." "Kate, this is Rick Castile, the owner of the company." Of course, I stood up, extended my hand, and said, "Nice to meet you. Do you prefer Kate or Miss Becker?" She replied, "It's nice to meet you too, Mr. Castile. I prefer Miss Becker." I smiled, turned to Tony, and said, "Well, Tony, why don't you waddle over to the lunchroom and show Kate how to make me a cup of coffee?" "Kate, I take it with cream and 1 teaspoon of sugar." I noticed a spark in Kate's eyes and inwardly chuckled, but I kept a straight face. In the hallway, Kate turned to Tony and said, "Mrs. Antonelli, I'm not sure this is going to work. I asked him to call me Miss Becker, and he keeps calling me Kate. And now he's ordering me around. There seem to be some character issues here, and I'm not sure I can handle them." Maybe you should find someone else. Tony laughed. Relax, Kate. I've known Rick for a long time, and trust me, this is just a test. Just go with the flow, and you'll see. It'll all work out. Both women returned to the break room, and Kate poured Rick a cup of black coffee. Tony smiled at her. What are you doing? Rick said he wanted cream and sugar. Kate chuckled. Yeah, I think that's what he said, but I guess two can play at this game. As they walked back to Rick's office, they chatted and laughed. Kate placed the coffee in front of Rick and said, Here's your coffee, Mr. Castile. Rick took it and tasted it. He furrowed his eyebrows. Well, Miss Becker, the interview is over. It was a pleasure meeting you. Goodbye. A shocked expression appeared on Tony and Kate's faces, and both started to say something in response. But Rick stopped them and escorted them out of the office with the words, Goodbye, ladies. As soon as they reached the door, he called out to them. By the way, Kate, I prefer to be called Rick rather than Mr. Castile. And just so you know, I prefer my coffee black. I'll see you tomorrow morning. As they left his office, both Tony and Kate said in unison, What a bastard. But as they left, they laughed. Tony said, You'll probably never get used to him, but he's growing on you. The next morning, Kate looked into my office and said, Good morning, Rick. Can I get you some coffee? I replied, laughing, I'll go in there with you, and we'll both get coffee. I suppose if I let you take it, it will have cream and sugar in it. They both laughed as they walked back to the dining room. I think we can briefly discuss coffee etiquette. If you are drinking coffee for yourself, you can bring me a cup. If I am among the customers, you should always offer coffee and refill it after a while. If you're busy, I can get my own coffee and bring you a cup if you'd like. Kate, I saw something in your eyes yesterday and decided to test you on your skills. And you passed the test brilliantly. I don't want a submissive, ass-kissing personal assistant. I want you to be a counselor and fix things I might screw up. I always want your opinion and will always consider it, but when I make a final decision based on all the information I have, it will be my decision. It will be final, and I will be held accountable for it. I'm sure we'll get along just fine. Kate, please don't hold it against me for sassing you yesterday. I just wanted to see what you were made of, and I liked what I saw. She only smiled. I think it's time to tell you a little about Kate. She's quite tall, probably 5 feet 8 inches, and quite obese. Oh hell, she's fat. She's also not very attractive in the standard sense of the word. Her facial features can't be called classic, and her hair doesn't emphasize her attractiveness in the slightest. Add to that the unflattering style of clothing she wears, and, to put it bluntly, not many men would pay attention to her that first day. On the other hand, I saw something in her eyes that I really liked, and over the next few weeks, I began to truly consider her a beautiful person. Kate was an invaluable personal assistant. Her ideas were great, and she improved everything she touched. When I had meetings, she attended them with me and shared her impressions afterward. We attended dinners together and sometimes even went out of town, but always with separate rooms. We didn't have a romantic relationship, but as the weeks flew by, we became great friends. I knew I was falling in love with her, but I also knew that starting a romantic relationship with a work colleague wasn't the smartest decision. I was looking forward to Tony's maternity leave ending because then Kate would be gone, and I felt like I could start a romantic relationship with her then. Silly, of course, but that's what I thought anyway. It didn't quite work out that way. Tony came in after 12 weeks of maternity leave and asked for another 12 weeks. There was no way I could refuse her, so Kate was going to work another 12 weeks. On the one hand, I was baffled by the complexities of a workplace romance, but of course I was glad she would still be around. I decided that I would have to change my personal beliefs and pursue a romantic relationship with her, despite the fact that she worked for me. I guess I justified it a bit by saying that she was just a temp. One night, I took her out to dinner without a client, and she accepted. Over the next few weeks, Kate began to clean up her act little by little. One day, she came to my office and asked if we could talk in private. Of course, I agreed, and she confided in me. Rick, I know you love me, and I love you too. Sometimes I'm embarrassed by the way I look. In fact, I see some clients looking at me, wondering why you're with me. I smiled at her and said, Kate, you're right. I love you just the way you are. If you're not happy with the way you look, then do something about it. You know I run almost every day. Join me. We'll start slowly, and before you know it, you'll be losing weight and getting in shape. We can also go to the gym and work out, which will tone us both up. Like I said, you know I love you just the way you are. But if you want to improve your looks and well-being, I'm with you, baby. Take action. Buy some new clothes, get a new haircut, and get your breasts enlarged. When I said that, she slapped my face, but we both laughed. I'm serious, Kate. If you want to do some work, I'll give you money for it. But know that I won't love you any more than I already do. She did everything we talked about in about 2 months. She lost a lot of weight, her workouts bordered on fanaticism, and she was as toned as she could possibly be without being grotesque. Her hair had greatly improved the impression others had of her. And yes, she'd had a little plastic surgery from a surgeon, but nothing drastic. Others began to see her as a beautiful woman, but I saw the very woman I had fallen in love with. To me, she was beautiful too, but it didn't matter to me. She was still my Kate. One day in early August, we were having a picnic in a local park with the whole company, and I chose that occasion to get down on one knee and propose. Kate, will you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Her smile and the tears streaming down her face simultaneously told me what her answer would be. Yes, Rick, I will become your wife. She began planning our wedding without my input, but any of you who were there know that the principle of the 3Cs, which is usually equated to the father of the bride, applies equally to the groom. Shut up, lay out the money, and show up. So most of the planning went on without my involvement. But Tony was heavily involved, so a lot of my thoughts went through her. After all, we were soulmates. Everything was going well, and then came the proverbial fly in the ointment. Kenny Pierce, a marketing representative for Corona Enterprises Incorporated, the company that makes the perfume, came to Chicago to work on a new ad campaign. I wasn't a big fan of Kenny because of the way he sniffed around Tony the last time he came to town. Gino quickly put a stop to those actions when he noticed Kenny hanging around Tony. He's pretty intimidating. So Kenny backed off completely. You can imagine my shock when it was revealed that Kate was actually dating Kenny and, much to my displeasure, had fallen for him. Kenny and Kate went to high school together and to the same university. She told me that she had always had a crush on him when they were in high school. He didn't pay much attention to her because she wasn't too attractive then. But now, oh my God, all he had on his mind was sniffing around her, and she was enjoying every second of it. After work, Kate and I went out to dinner, and I commented on the attention he was giving her and how she was reacting to it. She got angry with me and told me to pull myself together. She said, Kenny is only here for 1 day, and I'm enjoying his company, so just get over it, Rick. When she told me to suck it up, I knew trouble was coming. Things were pretty calm between us for the rest of lunch, and when we were done eating, she said she wanted to go home. So, I happily dropped her off and headed to a small bar near my apartment for a couple of drinks. I'm not a big drinker, so no, I didn't get drunk, but I wanted to. I didn't really like the whole situation, but I decided to go with the flow because she was right. Kenny would be gone by noon the next day, Friday, and that would be the end of it. It was about 10 a.m. when Kate walked into my office and closed the door behind her. She sat down and said, Rick, I don't know how to tell you this. Kenny is going to leave today for a weekend trip to Las Vegas, and he asked me to go with him. My shock must have been obvious because she continued, I know it seems weird, but you have to understand that I've always wondered what it would be like to be Kenny's girlfriend. Rick, do you love me enough to let me do this one weekend? And then I'll be all yours. I immediately replied, Kate, let me get this straight. You want to spend the weekend with Kenny? The guy you had a crush on in high school? The guy who didn't pay attention to you when you were fat and unattractive, and now that you're beautiful, he can't take his eyes off you? You want me to approve of what you're doing? You're risking a relationship with a man who loved you then and loves you now for who you are, not how you look. Am I understanding this correctly? Rick, it's not like that, she protested. I just think I have to do it, so I don't have to spend the rest of my life wondering what I missed out on. Can't you understand that? Don't you love me enough to let me do this? Kate, I'm begging you not to go with him. Please don't do this to us. I love you enough to let you go if you feel it's necessary, but do you love me enough not to go? Okay, you said you love me enough to let me go, so I'll go. When I get back, I'll make you the happiest man on earth. That's it? I can't talk you out of going. No, I'll go. Well, if you're going, at least give me the ring back. I don't want my fiancée sleeping with some jerk while she's wearing my ring. A shocked and hurt expression appeared on her face, and she moaned, "Oh no, Rick, please don't make me give you the ring. Please. If you're going with him, give me the ring." Her eyes flashed like lightning, just like the first time we met, and I could see she was about to snap, but she pulled herself together. She took the ring off and placed it on my desk. She didn't even hand it to me. She just put it on the table and stood up. "Okay, Rick, if that's what you decide, I'm out of here." As Kate walked out of my office, I whispered, "Goodbye, Kate. I hope it was worth it." She turned and asked, "What did you say?" With great sadness, I replied, "I said, goodbye, Kate. I hope it was worth it." She had a very strange look on her face, but she walked out the door, and a short time later, I saw her leave the building and drive away. I could write a million words to describe the gamut of emotions that overwhelmed me, but I'll limit myself to the minimum. Rage, anger, hatred, pain, frustration, sadness, despair, love, and revenge. You get the idea. I sat at the table for about an hour, thinking about my life, my love for Kate, my hatred for Kate, and what I was going to do about her and Kenny. When my head stopped throbbing, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to Tony. "Hey babe, how's little Ricky doing? Is he awake?" Tony replied, "Hi, Rick. Ricky is doing well, and yes, he's awake. I'm going to put him down for a nap this afternoon. Tony, could you come into the office for an hour, please? Take Ricky with you. I'd like to hold him in my arms. I have a situation I need to discuss with you, so I would appreciate it if you could come as soon as possible." She asked if I was okay, and I said I wasn't, but we would discuss it when she got here. My second call was to Luca Di Stefano. Jano was not the only person with connections. Luca Di Stefano was a friend with connections. Uncle Tony and my Uncle Bernardo were great friends of Luca's father, but more importantly, Uncle Bernardo had many more connections than any of us. "Luca, this is Rick Castile." "Yes, I know it's been a while, and I apologize for not keeping in touch with you." "Yes, I promised to do a better job of staying close to my friends." After he told me off and I humbly apologized, he told me to get to the point of my call. Damn, I felt like a complete lowlife. "Luca, I need a big favor. My ex-fiancée, Kate Becker, is leaving O'Hare around 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a flight to Las Vegas. She's traveling with a guy named Kenny Pierce. I know you can get the flight number and have someone follow them. When they get there, check which hotel they will be staying at and detain them in a room or rooms so you have time to set up surveillance. I want photographs, audio, and video recordings. I want to know everything they do and say by tomorrow noon. Then email it all to me early tomorrow morning. After that, I don't care what you do with the photos, audio, and video recordings, but I want them to think you're keeping constant surveillance on them. Make it look like you're working for Kenny's wife. Her name is Marilyn. I want you, Luca, to ruin their weekend. No, I don't want anyone to get hurt, but I don't care if they get scared. Thanks, Luca. I'll make sure Uncle Bernardo knows you did it for me. When Bernardo is happy, everyone is happy. And Luca, let me know how much it will cost. It doesn't matter how much. I need that information by noon tomorrow. I promise to meet you after it's over to thank you properly. Goodbye, my friend. I will look forward to the information." When Tony entered my office, I stood up and closed the door, putting my arms around her. I took little Ricky from her hands and cuddled him to me. He was growing normally, but he still seemed like such a little lump to me. I kissed his forehead and felt his softness and warmth. The thought of having a baby hit me especially hard because now, it wasn't going to happen as soon as I had hoped. A tear rolled down my cheek, and Tony definitely noticed it. "Ricky, what's wrong? Honey, please tell me what's going on." I explained the whole conversation with Kate to her and told her everything that was on my mind. She got upset, hugged me again, and said, "Oh, Ricky, I'm so sorry. What do you want from me? Can you work a couple of hours a day for the next week? I need you to do some administrative stuff for a few days, and then we'll see what needs to be done next. I spent the rest of the day making plans for the coming week, making the necessary phone calls to get everything sorted out, and finishing my day at the office at about the usual time. I did take some work home, figuring I would need to get it done over the weekend. Saturday afternoon, I got a call from Luca saying he had everything I needed and would email it to me. I thanked him and told him we'd be in touch soon. I spent a few hours going through the pictures Luca had sent me, watching and listening to videos. Some of them I could fast forward through, but when it came to the intimate moments, I paid special attention. What I saw surprised me. I printed out a few frames from the video to insert into a presentation I was working on. I also created a couple of short clips for effect. I then spent the rest of the night putting the finishing touches on my presentation. I went to bed, but I didn't feel like I slept very well. You might think you didn't sleep, but I'm pretty sure you did. Early Sunday morning, I got up, finalized my presentation, and spent the rest of the time before leaving for the airport looking out the window. Monday morning, Kate walked into the office and was greeted by Tony. She said, "Tony, it's really good to see you here. Where's Rick? I tried calling him all last night, but there was no answer. His cell phone seems to be off as well." Tony looked at Kate with a very neutral expression and said, "Hello, Miss Becker." He handed Kate an envelope and added, "Miss Becker, this is official notification that your services are no longer required at the Castile Advertising Agency. Your temp agency has also been notified. Thank you for your services." Kate, of course, was stunned and at a loss for words but still managed to whisper, "What's going on, Tony?" "Miss Becker, Mr. Castile simply asked me to terminate your services. I took the liberty of collecting all of your personal belongings, and they are here in this box." She bent down to pick up one of those paper boxes so often used to store things and held it out to Kate across the table. Kate was stunned again and replied, "I'm going to go talk to Rick and get this sorted out." "Rick isn't here right now, so that's not possible. Besides, you need to leave the building now," Tony replied. Kate asked, "Where's Rick?" "Actually, he's in New York doing a presentation for Corona Enterprises Incorporated about their new ad campaign." Kate was having a day full of shock because she looked stunned again. This news seemed to knock the life out of her. "Rick and I were going to go to New York and do this presentation together," Kate sobbed. "We were going to have this special time in New York just for the two of us," she said, with tears streaming down her face. Tony inwardly sympathized with Kate but held back her emotions and said, "Well, Miss Becker, I think that was before you left for Las Vegas with another man. Rick won't be back in the office until Friday, and he asked me to set up an appointment for you to meet with him at that time. Would 4 p.m. Friday be okay with you?" Kate could barely whisper, "Yes." "Very well then. He will see you at 4 p.m. Friday." Kate spent a miserable 4 days waiting to see Rick. She called his cell phone several times, but each time the call went to voicemail. After arriving in New York, Rick called Henri Corona to arrange a meeting at his hotel to present the new ad campaign. He told Henri that he would prefer to meet away from the company offices because part of the meeting would be personal. He also asked Henri to bring his daughter, Marilyn, with him. He kept getting calls from Kate, but when he saw her numbers, home and cell, he didn't answer. The calls went to voicemail again, after which he deleted them without listening. When Rick began making the presentation, he warned Henri Corona and Marilyn Pierce that he had two motives for being there. The first was to present what he thought would be a very good ad campaign. The second was personal because it was about Kenny, Marilyn's husband. His presentation ended up being very unpleasant for Kenny because Henri Corona, the owner of Corona Enterprises Incorporated, was not too pleased that his son-in-law had become intimate with a woman who was not his daughter, Marilyn. Marilyn was beyond furious. She wasn't shocked, as she had suspected Kenny was playing a joke on her, but she was still furious. Now she had proof, and for that she was grateful to him. The ad had some very sensual pictures of Kenny and the woman. Even though the pictures annoyed him, Rick knew the concept of the ad would be awesome. He came up with the caption, "Wear me and see euphoria. I think the name of your new fragrance should be Euphoria, and these photos certainly reflect that concept." The woman in the photos was clearly in a euphoric state because he had captured the moment of ecstasy in one of the videos. Henri and Marilyn were somewhat shocked to see Kenny with the beautiful woman, but both had to agree that the concept was wonderful and would certainly help sell the new fragrance. Rick, I think you've realized something, and we appreciate your insight. The emotion radiating from this woman is incredible. Rick smiled and continued, I'm sure you'll want to hire another man for the role because I feel Kenny is no longer at his best. But you might want to consider this woman. She is very beautiful and very sensual. As we can all see, each person has a different look, and it is almost impossible to recreate that look with another person. No one will ever replace Andie MacDowell in L'Oreal's Because You're Worth It commercial. No one can replace Kate Walsh in a Cadillac CTS commercial. When you turn your car on, does it reciprocate? And no one can replace Cindy Crawford in a Pepsi commercial. I think the image of this woman is what we need for this campaign. I can give you her name and phone number if you're interested. Henri said, Oh yes, when you said her image is what we need, I agree. She will be perfect for what we need. Please give us her name and phone number. Rick held out a piece of paper to Henri. Her name is Allison Kendall. I'm not sure if that's her real name, but she uses it. Her number is on the slip of paper. And, of course, you should know she's a call girl. I don't know if she'll be interested, but maybe the move and new profession will appeal to her. All you can do is ask. No, that wasn't Kate Becker in the photos and video with Kenny Pierce. Kate must have come to her senses when they flew to Vegas because, when they arrived, they rented separate rooms. All evidence indicated that she rejected all of Kenny's attempts at intimacy. Kate never slept with Kenny, but I'm afraid the damage was done anyway. By late evening, Kenny was so frustrated that he sought the services of a call girl, and she was the one featured in all the campaign photos. Luckily, Luca continued to pursue Kenny, because the result was some amazing concept shots. I hope Allison agrees to star in the commercial because she's perfect for it. You don't need all the details of what happened to Kenny, but rest assured, he paid a huge price. Friday afternoon, Kate sat with Rick. Rick, I don't understand what's going on right now. Why did you refuse my services? I know you still need an assistant, and Tony isn't ready to come back yet. Please, Rick, I didn't sleep with Kenny. I promise. Kate, why should I believe that? After all, you went to Vegas with him by yourself. Rick, I swear to you, I didn't sleep with him. You said you loved me enough to let me go. You're right. I said I loved you enough to let you go. The only problem, Kate, is that your definition of letting you go is different from mine. You meant go to Vegas, and I meant letting you go, not holding you back. That's the difference, Kate. I know you didn't sleep with Kenny, but it doesn't matter. The damage is done. I loved you, Kate. Almost from the first minute I met you, I started loving you. I loved you when you were fat and unattractive. Your looks didn't matter to me. But my love wasn't enough for you. You needed the approval of others. You were going to leave no matter what. I even asked for my ring back, hoping it would make you come to your senses, and you took it off and put it on my desk. You were going to leave no matter what, Kate. That's when it all happened. That's when I realized I could never trust you with my heart. That's when I realized that I would never be enough for you. There will always be something else that is more important to you than me. I don't want to live like that, Kate. That's why our relationship has been over all this time. Kate sat in a state of shock, tears streaming down her face. She realized her mistake, but it was too late. She pleaded with Rick. Rick, I'm so sorry. I know I made a terrible mistake, but I really do love you with all my heart. Can't you forgive me and give me another chance? Kate, I don't need to forgive you. You are free and have always been free to do whatever you want. I have no right or power to tell you what to do. You were free to choose and you chose. You chose not me. That choice made it clear that I'm not as important to you as you are to me. When you put the ring on my desk and walked out the door, I said goodbye. I hope it was worth it. At that moment, I let you go. It's over, Kate. I wish you nothing but good luck in the future, but it's over. Epilogue. In the months that followed, Kate tried unsuccessfully to talk to Rick, but he wanted nothing to do with her. Although Tony was furious, she was able to continue their friendship and eventually learned that part of the problem was actually Rick's. Knowing that she had never slept with Kenny would have allowed many men to forgive and continue a loving relationship with her. But Rick had deep psychological wounds from his childhood that prevented him from doing so. Kate found out from Tony that Rick's mother had a lover and had simply walked out of his life one day. She told him she was leaving with another man and that he would never see her again. There was no emotion in her words. And even though Rick cried and begged, she just turned and walked away. He never saw her again. Rick's father, devastated by his wife's betrayal, started drinking heavily. Eventually, he too left Rick. The two people he loved most had simply abandoned him. His father, drowning in alcohol, died in a fatal car accident. He too had left Rick behind. Rick went into foster care and was eventually adopted by Tony's family. Took him years to believe that they wouldn't abandon him too. He probably needed a psychiatrist to help him sort out his trauma, but he never sought one. Kate cried for a long time after learning everything that had happened to Rick. She cried not only for herself but for him, because, in the end, she had done the same thing his mother had done. She had walked away, and there was no way he could accept that, not after everything. She tried to contact Rick many times, but to no avail. He didn't answer his cell phone, and though she left several voicemails, he never returned her calls. She called him from a payphone once, but as soon as he recognized her voice, he hung up immediately. Not that she was stalking him, but she knew his routine. Every now and then, when she felt particularly lonely, she would go for a run near his usual spots or eat at one of his favorite restaurants, hoping for a chance encounter. One day, she called his number early in the morning. A woman answered. "I'm Rick's fiancée." "Who is this?" Kate's heart sank. "Please tell Rick that Kate called. Tell him I'm sorry and that I will never bother him again." With that call, Kate lost all hope. She let herself go. She gained weight, stopped taking care of herself, and reverted to the insecure, unattractive woman she had been before she met Rick. She saw him and his new wife from time to time, and each time, she withdrew further into herself. When she finally saw them with their newborn baby, she shattered. She dissolved into obscurity. From that moment on, she became a robot going through the motions of life. She worked, ate, slept, and worked again. She didn't commit any horrible crimes, nor had she even truly cheated on Rick in the traditional sense. There was no way she could have known he was in such a fragile state. Nevertheless, she had to pay for her foolish actions. Should Rick have forgiven her? Perhaps, but we are all shaped by our past. And Rick's past had shaped him into someone who could never forget her betrayal. She had left him, and for that she had to pay the price, no matter how harsh it was.